Okay, good evening, everyone. Please take a seat. So we will start the program in a minute. Okay, please sit down, and if you want to take some drink or food, please help yourself. Okay, so let's start the program now. Let me introduce myself. I'm a professor at Caltech. My name is Thomas Hao. I've been at Caltech for 32 years already, 1993. So I'm a professor in applied computational mathematics. So I would like to, on behalf of Caltech, welcome everyone. Come to this Pi Day Reflection event. It's the first time I think that we formally organize such an event. Our neighbor university, PCC, have done it for many years. So this is today's event was jointly organized with PCC, Pasadena City College, and also the DRBU, the Dharma Realm Buddhist University in Ukiah, Northern California, and also Cal State LA. So we have many distinguished guests. The turnout is exceeding my expectation. We actually brought some extra chair. Looks like almost all the seat has been taken. So very happy for this turnout, despite the very cold weather. And also would like to thank a few people. My department chair, Chris Ullman, generously provided some support, although I only told him in the very last minute, and he provided some limited funding to support this event. Also, I would like to thank my administrative assistant, Joy Tobuchi, and she has been helping to make a logistic arrangement, reservation, buy the refreshment, so make everybody feel home. And also, today I'm very happy to see so many distinguished guests. I will not have time to thank everyone. So in particular, I would like to thank two distinguished guests from San Marino, in our neighbor. So Mr. John Chow is a city council member of the San Marino City. And also Joseph Chen, and is a San Marino Unified School District board member. Thank you. And we have many distinguished guests, including professor from Cal State LA, department chair of the mathematics, computer science, and also Pasadena City College, the dean of natural science, and many distinguished guests. I will not be able to introduce them one by one. And also the Professor Huang is sitting right in front of me here. He's a very well-known heart surgeon from USC Medical School, and he's a very busy man, but today he made a special effort to come here. He's one of the main co-organizer. He was the one who had this idea to have this joint event. So very much appreciate his support. And he also he was the former chair of the board of trustee of the DRBU, so made a lot of contribution to the DRBU. So today we are very happy to have this gathering. So we want to mix science and philosophy and humanism. So in the age of AI, many people, I think almost every one of us have been affected by the digital revolution, that as we witness the ChatGPT, right? I mean, I kind of like a few months ago, I was still with 60. I don't want to use ChatGPT, that's too high tech. But after my son convinced me, actually ChatGPT can do very good things for you. Then I find that I can talk to the ChatGPT and it can do many good things for you. Of course, you cannot take everything literally from ChatGPT. Sometimes they give you wrong information too. And so I think that in this age of rapid development of information, so much information that we see every day, and it creates a tremendous amount of opportunity. At the same time, also anxiety, especially for younger people, for people coming out of college. They will have some concern whether or not their job will still be there 10, 15 years later, because maybe it will be replaced by AI, by robot, right? So what is how do we position ourselves? So today we have 5 different talks, and actually you have a different age distribution. We start from from Dr. Xiaozhou Fang. He is a postdoc research scholar at the Aeronautics Department at Caltech, which has a very long tradition. He was doing research inspired research under Professor Maury Garib. He's the director of Caltech. And then we have Professor Franca Hoffmann. She's the one that helped you to set up this game, the logical game. She's our fairly recent assistant professor who has done a lot of wonderful outreach work in Africa to promote mathematics and to educate the people there, to young people to learn computer science, to help them to improve their life. And I very much admire her effort and devotion. And then followed by that, I will give a talk, because I originally did not plan to give a talk, because I've not really done anything related to AI, but my students have done very fantastic work. But since this is not a technical audience, I would like to share with you my understanding, my insight about what AI can do and what AI can bring and what kind of concern that we need to be aware of. So after that, we have two distinguished professors from DRBU. So we have Doug Power and also Meghan. So we give you a different perspective about more on the philosophy side, humanism, and what do we do, how do we position ourselves. I think that together hopefully give you a very more complete picture. So hope everybody will enjoy this evening and you will get something out of it. And in particular, I would like to want to thank Dr. Yu-Chung. She's standing there in picture. She has been doing this Pi Day event at PCC for the past 12 years and had a very successful event yesterday at PCC and going to have another event tomorrow afternoon. We've featured 4 very distinguished speakers in the afternoon. So with that, I would like to introduce the first speaker, Dr. Fang. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name, first of all, I want to thank Tom and Jennifer for inviting me here to give a talk. And my name is Xiaozhou. I'm currently a postdoc. And today, I'm going to talk nothing about my postdoc work, but everything to do with my PhD. I'm just going to very small portion of my PhD work. It's about bats and how we can, the things we have done to bats and to study them and to build next generation aerial robots. So the hero of the hour is a drum roll. Bats. For example, bats are very agile flyers. And look at this picture of a flying fox. It's super mom because it carries its baby in its belly, as you can see. So they can carry extremely large quantity of payload. And they are very agile, as you can see in this video. This is a Glossophaga hovering and to get nectar from the feeder. Bats actually fly by their hands. So like our hands, if you reach, stick our hands, you will see there are many digits. And unlike our hands, bats fly with the membranes in between digits. So at any time, their motion is very flexible. And they have featured these folding of wings and twisting of wings. And these big motions all have aerodynamically meaningful reasons. And not only these small motions, but more subtle motions, such as the bulge of the membrane, also have significant application to their flight performance. So they are able to fly elegantly, and also in face of extreme wind gust, they are also be able to outperform anything that we have seen today. For example, this is a bat flying through an open window, and there's a jet hitting on its wing, and within half a windy cycle, it's able to recover. And this jet is not like a breeze, but it's 2.5 of its body weight, so it's significant, and it's able to recover from this aerial tumble within half a windy cycle. This is far superior than anything that we have to this date. So bats obviously have all these great. And also, of course, if without flapping their wing, you can go long distance without actually break a sweat. And it has all these remarkable, efficiency, and it's more safe because the bat wing flaps at much slower frequency compared to the, for example, the quad rotor that we see these days. We can hear them coming towards us from miles apart, and it sometimes can be scary. With all these, these great benefits, the fact that we don't see anything fly like them, that begs a question: what is going on here, right? Why we have all these, advantage, but we don't see anything like them? So what is going on? Obviously, over the years, institutes have tried to build bio-inspired robots to fly like them, such as the case for MIT and FISTO. And here in Caltech, our own, we have our BatBot too. But still, there's a big gap between where we are right now to actually achieve their flight capability like theirs. So what is the problem? And the problem we can break down to, first of spatial and temporal. Spatial, this is a fancy jargon, basically means things to do with space. And for example, as I mentioned earlier, their flight features their flight at the hand. So features these big motions, such as the folding of wings and the twisting of wings, and also more subtle motions, such as the bulge in the membrane swing, known as camber in aerospace term. So to summarize these, their motion features multi-scale, things from small to a large, and all of that matters to their flight performance. And we are sometimes very naive, only look at the big picture, big things, like the first twist and folding, but neglecting the subtle but also important features such as the camber. And another feature has to do with temporal, things to do with time, for example. And this is our familiar, all too familiar passenger airliner. And we want this is just and we want our flow for this airliner to be smooth. This is in contrast with how birds and bats fly. They start with unsteady flow. So naturally their motion has to do with time. And that is actually, they are able to harvest energy from these time variation, the eddies, for example, which is not something that we are comfortable to do at this moment. So in other words, they have these things, everything to do with them, their benefit comes from the fact that they are superior of unsteady flyers. And so hopefully I motivate the reason why we don't see anything fly like them quite this moment yet. And the reason is space and time. And for this talk, I'm just gonna focus on one specific task, which is the jet propulsion. And how, when we talk about jet propulsion, the first image pop out into our head is the engine, right? We have a big engine and it's blowing air, mass flow, flux towards the end, towards the trail. But it turns out that the small cute animals, they also can do a jet engine. Let's look at this video, side-by-side video, left and right. On the left, we have both of the bats are flying straight and level. And this is recording in the wind tunnel. And on the left, the bat, we are looking at its belly. Basically, we're looking up, and it's flying straight. The wing folds. The two wing tips in the upstroke are a good distance apart. But look at their flight on the right, where we see that when it's flying faster, the wingtip, the folding angle is so much that from two wings, they actually clap. The tips actually smash together. And we hypothesize by this motion, there's a donut-shaped vortex ring being generated, which is the manifestation of bio-inspired propulsion, or jet propulsion. So and it turns out the similar phenomenon is not just in bats, but also are found in these cute Japanese birds, such as golden finch, and also, of course, in water animals, such as sea lion, right? They have their four flippers in A, wide apart, and in C, the flippers smash together to effect this water jet. Is another manifestation of jet propulsion. So obviously, we cannot ask the birds and bats to, do our bidding. And so we have to build robots to consistent and rigorously understand this phenomenon. There comes our hero of this talk, the robotic component. So we build robots of 3 degrees of freedom that captures basically the minimum system that affect the jet propulsion. Namely the flapping, folding, and twisting, and if they're combined. Sorry, I'm giving you a sneak peek. That will, recover the macroscopic behavior of the flapping wing. Putting everything together, then we put our flapperoo, we call it, in wind tunnel, and we see the wingspan is about 1 meter. So, and it's able to clap consistently in a consistent manner, and we use this to study this jet propulsion phenomenon. And this is just some experiment set up, how we're gonna study this phenomenon. It turns out we can use laser to illuminate a very short snapshot of the flow, and we can visualize the jet being produced in the next slides. For example, here is a photo montage of the at the moment of clapping when the wings are coming close, and we are looking at the basically mid-plane. And we see that at the moment of clap, there's a big red blob, which is the vertical velocity that features mass flux. That means the appearance of jet. And this jet, the red blob, is being subsequently carried away because there's a free stream. There's the air goes from left to right, so it's being convected downstream by the free stream, this jet. So this we observe the jet, and it turns out not only we can produce the jet, but we can also control them, because sometimes you don't want to generate. So what's the significance of jet, right? You may ask. Jet means you have more lift. So why do we want more lift? It means you can carry more stuff, and payload capability is increased by because of the jet. And that turns out not only we can produce the jet, but we can also manipulate the direction of the jet by the means of twisting. So at the moment of the clapping, if you angle your wing, it's able to the same amount of resultant force is being generated, but the direction is being altered. So you can have a thrust component being generated, and also it turns out that you don't have to actually, like the physical bats, smash or touch your wing tips to effect this jet. You can safely, the two wings can stay a safe distance apart, but the same phenomenon can also be produced. And most important of all, we know that to have this clapping, you have to exert additional power to effect this actuation. Is it worth it by comparing how much you gain by how much you pay, the extra actuation you pay? Is it worth it? That's answered by here, by the notion of power economy. And as we see here, there are basically, it's remarkable to note that birds and bats, they have, obviously if you are a bird lover, if you like to watch how birds fly, then you observe that the up and down motion are not symmetry, especially in the upstroke, they retract their wing. And this is the symmetry breaking mechanism, and that gives us the first peak of efficiency. However, as this symmetry breaking is more and more pronounced, then we have another extreme, which is the jet propulsion that we talked about here. Jet propulsion, in other words, is another form of extreme efficient flight mode that can be found in birds and bats flight. And with that, I want to conclude my talk. So basically, I just focus. This talk is on 1/4 of my PhD is about jet propulsion. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask. And I'm also happy to take questions afterwards.
Thank you very much, Dr. Frank.
How did you apply the AI in your research?
The short question is we don't at this moment. But the long question is we can use AI to study how the optimal wing kinematics, to generate different thrust. Because there are, like in our hands, there are many degrees of freedom. So how do we extract the most critical flight, component that is the next step.
And I believe the size of the wing is proportional to the jet.
Yes.
Yeah, you're going to produce. If the jet is enough to carry certain weight, because like the birds and the bats, their body weight is very light.
Yeah.
So in order to really apply to the aircraft
Yeah.
or something like that, you really need a big wing.
Very good question. The skating, the reason we don't see any dragons, for example, right now, right? Because there are these mythical flapping animals, is because the mode of flight changes if you from small to big. At the big passenger airline scale, flapping wing is not sufficient. They only have albatross, the largest avian. Yeah, very good question.
Can you,
Yeah. Yes. You go ahead.
it's okay if you can explain how you create a high degree of freedom in the robotic design, like you choose any motors or servos or anything?
Yeah, we use exactly servo motors, 3 separate driven servo motors to actually allow me to. Probably yes. So servo motors, and we independently drive all of them, and they work in synergy to effect this motion.
Thank you.
Last
Are there any study on hummingbirds?
Yes, hummingbirds is actually a very interesting regime between insect flight and birds and bats. So they are small, but they don't have bones, for example, in their wings. And hummingbirds actually, believe me, is the most studied regime because it's superb at hovering, right? So very good question. There are many studies about hummingbird.
So maybe you can, in the future, you can get some feedback control.
Yeah.
Like give some sensor to see that, to detect the environment so that we can adjust
Yeah,
the way you clap.
exactly. With wing air interaction, for example. So
Yeah,
that would be-
that's right. So thank you. Let's thank Dr. Franca again. That's a great start. So now the next, I welcome my colleague Franca Hoffmann, and she, as I mentioned, that she's relatively new faculty, and she already done a lot, and she just sit next to my opposite of my office. So she has devoted considerable amount of time to promote mathematics. Besides being a wonderful, outstanding researcher, but she also devoted considerable amount of time to helping other people to promote mathematics to other underdeveloped part of the world. So today she will give us an overview about her mathematical journey through Africa. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. It's really exciting to see an event like this happening in collaboration with several different institutions. As you mentioned, so normally what I work on is partial differential equations and also interacting particle systems, but I will not talk about my research today, but I will talk about a passion of mine. So in this very brief talk, I want to basically focus on just 2 questions. So the first question I want to address is, how can we teach mathematics or STEM subjects in general differently? And secondly, what is the role that us as mathematicians or scientists can play in international developments? And I want to share with you today my personal thoughts on these 2 questions and how they evolved over, or what I'm sharing with you is based on my own personal experience being involved in math and science outreach activities and also research capacity building efforts in Africa for more than a decade. And then I want to conclude with a few lessons learned. Hopefully you will leave this room inspired, and hopefully you can connect to some of the things I want to share. Okay, so the first question I want to ask to you is, what would you change about the way that STEM is taught? So the fact that you're here in this room, I assume that you have some interest in mathematics or STEM fields, or at least some level of enthusiasm. But I guess you're also aware that this is not the case for many other people. And so many people, they have very negative associations to mathematics. They feel that they can't do it, or they have some memories of failure connected to that subject, or they feel it's something very dry and abstract and not really useful in everyday life, all of these things. I hope that by the end of today, you have seen some examples of in which way this is not true. But what I've been involved in to sort of address this is math camps, among many other activities. And in these math camps, these are for children, usually between the age of 12 to 17. But here we're not looking at recruiting the kids that are already doing very well in mathematics and they want to do competitions and they're very excited about it. No, this is programs for kids who feel that they just want to run away from mathematics and they feel it's not for them. And so this is, so these camps are 1 week, and we hope that by the end of the week, kids will leave with, first of all, some new self-confidence, that they can actually tackle some problems, and also with a sense of empowerment that it's kind of a way of thinking, a methodology of how to tackle problems in general in life, and also enthusiasm and enjoyment, like the enjoyment of the creative process of engaging in critical thinking. And so in 1 week, what can you do, right? I mean, you cannot really teach content in a way that it would improve someone's grades, but what you can achieve is to really change the way how people think about the subject as a whole. And so this will change the way how they interact with the subject in the future, the opportunities that they seek out, what they're trying to learn, and so on. So there's many really quite inspiring sort of stories of people that have attended these camps. Here you see Zach Mbasu. He's a math teacher in Kenya, and he's the one who founded the math camps in Kenya in 2011. And they became very popular, and then there's other sort of small local groups, really grassroots initiatives that heard about this and said, oh, we would love to have this in our country as well. And it started spreading. So I have a map, I think, in a minute about all the different countries where it is now at in Africa. But you see that people are really having fun. So it's really amazing to see how at the first day they come and they think, oh God, what am I doing here? 1 week of mathematics, and then this is how they walk away, and they want to come back and they want to volunteer, and it's this just sense of having fun and enjoyment in it. This is in Tanzania, where I was involved in setting up one of the new camps when it opened there. And this is the map. So this is where these camps have spread to by now. So here you have Ghana, you have Togo, Benin, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and there's even more groups that are interested in setting up teams. So we have like local volunteer teams, international volunteer teams. Everything is entirely volunteer-based, and there's really sort of a pedagogical model that has evolved out of these camps over the years, and the puzzles that you see here that some of you tried are all puzzles that come out of this camp material. And each camp, the volunteers get together and we also design new material. So for instance, me, when I was working on partial differential equations, I turned that into a session at the camp. And of course, these students, they have never seen a PDE, but that's okay. Like, it's about understanding the idea, like the concepts, and to find innovative ways of how you can have people engage with the concepts, even if they haven't learned the formal language of how to write down these mathematics yet. Because in the end, mathematics is just a language to communicate ideas, right? It's an international language, which is one of the beautiful things about it. One of the big takeaways for me is that attitude really matters, especially if you want to get involved in international development. Why are you there? Like, do you feel that, oh, I'm coming here to help these poor children? Or are you coming there as equals? Like, are you coming there saying, this is an exchange? I learned something, you learned something, right? We're both enriching our experience. And these, I think, I would say, are key math camp principles that have emerged from how these activities have been run. So one is sustainability. I think this is very important to me because, you know, many organizations you can say, okay, we do an event, and then it was great, and then what? You know, like, are you running a math camp because you do it once, or are you trying to develop a model that is sustainable? And what does that mean, sustainable? Like, for instance, if you come in with donors and funding, right, are you able to guarantee that you have the same donations and funding in the future to make the event happen? And even if you do you really want to create that kind of dependency related to what you're building in the long term, right? So the question is, how can you build sustainability that is anchored locally in a way that actually gives the agency to the local community, to the mathematicians there, to be able to run these events in the long term? Then extracurricular. The reason why we do that is because we have very diverse student audiences. We have people that go to a private school and they have already coded their own app, and we have kids that have never in their life seen a computer. And we have them in the same classroom and we teach them programming. So you want to teach things that are new to everybody, because then it's a level playing field. And it also means that they can explore what is mathematics outside of school. You know, when I went to university for the first time, I mean, after high school, I realized that mathematics is not what I thought it was. Because what you do in school is sort of just a tiny, tiny little piece of what is actually the world of mathematics out there. Then inclusive, of course, we have people from very different walks of life, ages, like, goes without saying, like, one way how to do that is to use teamwork and to actually put people in teams that come from different backgrounds, and then they have to achieve something as a team. Everyone learns. As I said, for instance, when I came there, I was already involved in some research projects, but I had never been taught before. And there were math teachers there who were very experienced in how to take an idea and turn that into a lesson. But they were excited to learn from me sort of what are the new things in mathematics? Like, what is research? What is going on in research? And I really learned from them how to put together, you know, content for something you want to teach. Then technology, like we try to use technology in all of the aspects of the camp. Every camp we develop new education material. It's really an immersive environment, so these puzzles, they're going on at night, in the morning, over lunchtime. And we play games after dinner with the students and the volunteers. And then there's really a sense of community that came out of this. So through the math camps, there's now a network of mathematicians, math teachers, math educators, math education researchers, math enthusiasts across the whole African continent that are collaborating on a number of programs that have nothing to do with the math camps, but connections came about through that. And then in 2020, a global pandemic happens. And so a lot of the math camps had to shut down because also in Africa, many schools were closed. There were very strict rules about meeting in groups and so on. So what we did instead is develop a virtual version of the math camp. But while in many countries in the world, learning just went online, that is very difficult to do if the kids don't have access to computers, if you don't have access to electricity, if you don't have access to internet, or at least only intermittently or not reliably. And so we had this idea of developing a Caltech. I think I have one here. So this is basically a lot of the material that we developed over more than a decade for these math camps, packed into a deck of cards. And each card has a little problem on it. And it's like these problems that you see up on the wall, but you can use them for a math lesson. And then there's extension problems and generalizations, and actually goes into sometimes even open research questions. And there's a little QR code, and so you get to a website where you have more explanations, hidden solutions. There's also a chatbot version of this that works with Telegram, or just with a phone that's not even a smartphone, so just SMS. And there's a facilitator handbook where you can, basically you don't even need any online access to run activities with it. So this is entirely volunteer-based. So we had about 80 volunteers putting this together. And we're now giving out these camp bags on donation basis to actually help fund some of these activities. So I brought some in the back there. Obviously, this is entirely optional, but if you want a camp bag and if you like to donate, so we don't sell them, we just give them out for donations, and you can donate if you want to, however much you like. So through the math camps, I ended up being involved in a lot of different things. So this is just sort of a little list of all the different initiatives, projects that I've been involved in just more recently. And here's a number of organizations that are involved in these activities. So AMI stands for African Mathematics Initiative, and that's a Kenyan NGO. And that's the NGO that came out of the math camps. And then after we supported them for a while with international volunteers, we founded SAMI, which stands for Supporting AMI. So it's a UK-based charity. Then AIM stands for African Institute of Mathematical Sciences. This is a Pan-African math institute that sometimes hosted these camps. And through that, I got involved with them and then also mentored master's students, taught courses there, organized conferences. And in the end, I so currently have a part-time position with them as international scientific advisor. And prior to that, I was helping them to set up a Pan-African doctoral training program in data science. I see I should probably look a bit at time. Okay, so I will be very brief. The role of scientists in development. So, you know, whatever you do, whether you're a scientist or not, I think it's good to ask yourself the question of, does what you do matter? You know? Do you spend your time in a way that matters? And this is both true in terms of if you're a mathematician, let's say I'm just at Caltech and I want to do good research, right? You have to pick problems where you feel that those problems actually have impacts. And that doesn't mean impact directly in the real world immediately. It can be impact in terms of pushing a theory or getting new insights that then have impact down the road in ways you can't even predict. But are the things you're investing your time in, do they really matter? And then another question that I asked myself is why Africa, right? Like for me, I got involved in this a bit by chance that it was in Africa, but then I was really involved deeply for more than 10 years. And the reason is this. Sorry, I will wrap up very quickly. So this is a map of the world, just an equi-rectangular projection. And the World Mapper Project, they scale this map with certain quantities to kind of visualize some data, right? So for instance, I can scale this with population increase. And you see that Africa completely blows up, right? It's expected that by the end of the century, 49% of the world population will be African. This is why you should be interested in what's happening in Africa. Now look at this map. Scientific papers published in the world. Where's Africa? So when I saw this map in a presentation by Yu-Chung, who's the founder of AIMS, I was shocked. I was thinking, how on earth is this possible? So this is why I believe that for me, investing my time there for research capacity building matters. The impacts in terms of translation matters. And so what are my lessons learned? There's many. Maybe I would just comment on a few of them. When you get involved in things, especially in international development, are you thinking of long-term impact or one-off events? Secondly, who are you benefiting? Are you benefiting the organization that is sending you, or are you benefiting the local population? And when you measure that benefit, are you looking at the immediate outcome after that one event, or are you looking at the long-term effects? Are you in line with local initiatives, with what the people from there actually believe is best for them? Then money versus skills. This is a really interesting one. So, you know, sometimes you say, okay, we don't have enough books, we don't have internet access, we don't have, you know, so many things. Okay, we need money, and then we can solve all these problems. So what I learned is that sometimes throwing money at a problem does not necessarily solve it. I mean, some money helps, don't get me wrong. You know, you need some money to actually get somewhere. But having the wrong amount of money can also create other problems. And I learned that mostly what is the inhibitor is not the lack of money, it's the lack of skills. And you can do amazing things with very, very little resources. If you think of the math camps, all we needed is some piece of paper, some pens, and some matches. And you can push your critical thinking to a very advanced stage with these very basic tools. I think I will skip the other ones and just say that, you know, often when you work with people in developing countries, especially in Africa, you see so many challenges that people have to face in their everyday life. But really, you can rephrase a lot of these challenges as opportunities. And, you know, one thing is to choose to go beyond your comfort zone. This is true no matter where you are, what your context is. Are you choosing to avoid because it is a challenge, or are you able to turn it into an opportunity? Using a challenge as a pathway towards growth and progress, and then also if you feel that the thing that, or the life that you imagine, the pathway that you see in front of you is not attainable, how can you make it possible? Don't just choose options, what you see in front of you, create the options that you wish were there. And then seize the day means not everything is possible right now. You know, be ready to act when the door is open for that opportunity to become a possibility. And I think with that, I thank you all and happy to.
Thank you very much for this very inspiring talk.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, please.
Your experience in this maths camp in Africa is very unique. So I'd like to ask your thoughts that with this AI revolution, obviously the development and the impact from the AI will be much faster and also more substantial on the developed country compared to underdeveloped country. So the gap between the developed and underdeveloped may be widened even more from the AI because they have less opportunity. So what you thought about that?
This is a very good question. Yeah, I thought about this a lot, obviously because we were designing this doctoral training program in data science and we were interacting a lot with the AI community in Africa. On the one hand, if there is a limit to access of technology, it means that the gap might be widening. On the other hand, it's an opportunity to actually access global digital jobs that before you were not able to access. So for instance, India was able to go through a transition where now there's a lot of like digital work that is being done in India that has fueled also the development of the country in some way. Is Africa able to do something similar, right? So I think that the challenge is that there's currently sort of a bit of a monopoly in terms of the technology being developed here in California, actually. I mean, there's now other like regions that are coming up as well, but the development happening here is not keeping the conditions in Africa in mind. So for instance, most people in Africa now have access to smartphones. But if you need access to like heavy computing, like local computing, that's a challenge. There's very few supercomputing centers in Africa, right? So are you able to develop AI solutions that can work on a mobile phone? And if you're a designer or a technology person developing those tools, you need to keep that in mind, the way that you're developing your technology, right? So the answer to that is that you need to, it's again skills, right? If you have local experts that understand the local market and the local needs, they can channel the AI evolution towards developing tools that work there, not just in California. So that's it's possible. But if we don't take care, then the gap will widen. Yes.
Thank you. We are in view of the time. Let's thank Franca again. Well, for those of you coming late, there's still some seat over up here. Or please take any seat you can find.
Can I make one more announcement?
Sure, yeah.
So for those of you who want to have a prize, so the prize will actually be one of these card decks. And just come and see me afterwards. So stay until the end of the talks, and then I will collect stickers and you will be given a prize. Thank you.
Okay, so now let's change gear a little bit. So since we mentioned many times about AI, I should say I'm not expert in AI, but I would like to share with you some very simple knowledge that you either have heard about it or you should know about it. So this is the title, but I will spend the first half of my talk to give you some very basic introduction for what machine learning is, and then I would then talk about how do we nurture our critical thinking skill when we have so much knowledge, information just flood into us every day. So last year was a harvest for machine learning. After many years, you know that on October 8, 2024, actually during the seminar here, we learned that same day the Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded to machine learning pioneer. John Hoffmann is professor at Princeton. He used to be a professor at Caltech. Is in the computational neural network department. And Jeffrey Hinton in Toronto. These two are the pioneer contributor for the machine learning AI. And the next day, October 9, the Nobel Prize in Chemistry awarded to 3 scientists, and the 2 of them, this is from Google DeepMind in London, for using AI model to solve the 50-year-old problem predicting the protein complex structure. So they're not chemists by training, but they use AI to solve a very difficult 50 years open problem, right? So they got recognition too. So that people joking that last year was the Nobel Prize for AI. Right? You get 2 twice. Okay, so AI, machine learning, for some of us who have been in academic world long enough, we have seen this up and down. I think in the 90s or something, people thought, oh, machine learning will take over the world, right? And then after a few years, nothing really happened. So people drop it, right? So, but that is really based on a very simple idea. So this idea based originally was John Hoffmann, he studied computational neuroscience. So he was thinking that can we try to mimic how biology, how human transmit information and then build a computer out of it, right? So it's like in Dr. Xiaozhou Frank's talk, try to mimic bat, how the bat fly, and then try to make a robot to fly like a bat, right? So that is the idea. So basically, in biology, we know that in humans, when you transmit signal about between 2 different neurons, or between neuron and cell, through this synapse, right? So if you see something, you learn something new concept, and then you somehow you trigger somehow your memory, so then you get a strong connection, right? You get the development, the 2 neurons, you get excited, and it becomes stronger connection. But there's many neurons in your body, but for those other part of your brain, you have they're not responsible for learning that particular task. They have no reaction. They're very weak response. So the machine learning building on a similar principle, instead of having a neuron, they have a so-called node, right? Like a node, computer node. So then they assign value between the different nodes, the connection. Right? Instead of sending the synapse, using a connection, right? So if the neuron, the artificial neural network sees something they have seen before. They see a connection, right? If they get excited at the same time, then you get a stronger connection. Right? The two simultaneously get active. Right? You get a larger weight. But for the other neuron that they have not responsible for this area of learning, they have very little reaction, very weak. So you get assigned a small value. So instead of strong or weak, you assign a value larger or small. That's how you measure the connection. So that was so basically the idea that the artificial neural network was original by trying to mimic the brain, how humans train the brain to learn something to build a machine, right? So basically in 1982, John Hoffmann developed the first physical system inspired by a physical model, but inspired by the brain, by this neural network, based on a very small number of connected computational neurons. Right? So that was just a concept, right? Just a concept. It's like this. It's okay. Why don't we build a machine? The original was about 30 nodes, right? About 500 parameters. And then the Professor Hinton, he picked up this idea 3 years later, in 1985. Then he tried to build a machine to realize this concept by Hoffmann. Hoffmann just proposed an idea, but then Hinton actually built a machine. It's called Boltzmann machine, trying to do that. Right? So basically the same idea. You say, well, whenever you see something that's strong connection, you assign a value, and then there's a no connection. You're trying to mimic how the brain works. So that's basically how you've seen this in many places. You can see there's an input parameter, there's input data, there's an output. So you go through training. You teach you teach the computer to recognize what is a dog, what is a cat, right? What is an elephant? You see, let them see many pictures, not the same picture, but then they can generalize, right? So you go through training, and then the different layer. There's an input layer, a hidden layer, to be multiple layers, and then there's the output layer. So that gives you answer, yes or no, for example. It's a dog, a cat, or a different kind of thing. So original is a very small network, right? This small number of nodes. These are the nodes. A small, very shallow layer. Only a few layers, because you cannot handle that many parameters. Computer is not powerful enough, right? One very important idea about this neural network is that they have memory. For example, when you train a neural network to recognize, for example, like a letter J, right? You see many J's. Your handwriting, different people have different rate of handwriting. So then they recognize, oh, this is J. So they have a memory. So in the neural network, they remember they have seen this before, right? Like here, they have seen something that has, oh, this is a J. Different way to write J, you say, oh, they look similar J, right? So when you input a distorted J with a lot of noise, you're missing pieces of information. So when you input this as an input into your neural network, you would like to come out with the correct J right here, right? You say, oh, this is J, this is this J, right? But this is some missing information. So it's like you're dropping a ball in this energy landscape. So when you do a machine learning, actually you turn that using mathematics. So mathematics used in a very essential way. You formulate this recognition as a energy function, a loss function, using mathematical language. And then you train the computer to minimize, to find the global minimum, this energy landscape, right? So for example, this is the correct J, right? The neural network has seen it before. So remember, oh, this is the energy, this is the state that corresponds to the letter J, but may be written in a different form. So then you started from here with this J, but this J is very far from the true letter J, because this is the correct, not polluted J. This is a very noisy J, right? It's like you're dropping a ball from here, and then you go through mountain and valley, right? Sometimes you get stuck in the local minimum, cannot get out, right? In fact, the first maybe 10 or 15 years, when this machine come up, the success rate is very low. Take a long time to train, so people kind of give up. Until that the immediate, this GPU become cheaper and cheaper, more and more powerful. I was told an anecdote that one day the software engineer, they typically train it for an hour or two, then it doesn't work, they kill it, they shut it off. Right? They say, okay, it failed, right? Go home. Right? But then one day, one of the software engineer technician, they forgot to turn off the computer. They went to lunch. They train much longer. It turns out that it's like in the local minimum, but there's usually a settle point. There's a way you train long enough, they can escape. And then it's go to the global minimum. Then they see something completely different. The success rate much higher. then they realize, oh, the deeper the layer, the longer time you train, and the more parameter, you can learn it better. You can generalize better. That's how it becomes so powerful in the last, whatever, 10 years or 15 or 5 years. And then you can do many, many more things. People don't take it very seriously. Right? So that's why I say earlier. So in the 80s, when this first came out, there's a very small number of nodes, and about less than 500 parameters take a long time to train. The computer is very slow, right? Now one laptop can do a lot of things, right? But at that time, the supercomputer is not as powerful as my laptop, right? So, but the important thing is that this so-called backpropagation, right? This is a neural network that you can go forward learning, and then you can also go backward, and then back and forth, iterate, right? So this backward propagation is very important because then they try to remember what they have seen before, then they can generalize. So when you try to, for example, in the old days when you try to teach people want to be a chef, want to make a cake, and want to do certain dish, you have a recipe. You follow exactly the recipe. You're not supposed to change the recipe, not by much, but otherwise the dish will taste very different, right? No, but the artificial neural network, they can generalize. They can create new recipe, right? They have seen different recipes, then they can merge. They have their own idea. So that is the difference. So that's why we call intelligence. It's not just copy. In the past, you used to be told you do ABC, you should follow strictly. Otherwise, it's like you're doing a math exam. You have to do exactly this step, otherwise you can mark wrong, you get point deducted. But AI is very, very creative. They say, oh no, there's no unique truth, there's multiple truths, right? So they allow them to try different things and then learn. For example, now if you ask the computer AI to compose a music in the style of a Mozart or Beethoven, or maybe some mix, they can do that. Like I want to do certain thing, but in this style, they can do it because they've seen it, right? So they take in your input and they can create their own new recipe. Right? That is the part, very, very, very important. So ChatGPT now they can perform tasks such as coding, translation, right? Like a human, like a conversation. You can, in fact, I've seen it firsthand when I was traveling in Singapore in last December. My older son Anthony told me he talked to ChatGPT like a person. Tell me this, write something to praise me. Okay, say something good about me. I want to feel good. I'm very sad today. Tell me something cheer me up. And then the ChatGPT will give you something very, very, very flattering. He said, "Oh, you exaggerate. That's too much. Make it a little bit more modest." And then they come back. Okay, are you happier? Okay, maybe a little bit more. It's too low. So you can talk to them, negotiate with them. And then after that, I actually find it very useful that I can actually do a lot of things that the ChatGPT can help me to do. Of course, you have to give the input, but the output is much better than what I could have written by myself, right? But you have to give them the right input. I have to ask the right question, right? But it is amazing how much they can do. But there was a something that now on the trend. We'll talk about good thing. So Jeff Hinton, at the peak of his career in 2023, that's less than 2 years ago, he left Google because he's a professor at Toronto. But he said, "Oh, this AI I've seen is so powerful. It's like a monster." So he said, "Oh, now I have to do something to stop it before the AI can take over the human intelligence." So he actually quit. The group that the whistle. He said, "Oh, you said that I'm a scientist who suddenly realized these things are getting smarter than us." So he said, "I have to be careful, slow down, you know." So he said, "You should have to be very serious, otherwise this AI can get control over us." So it's not exaggerating. I saw his interview at CNN. He's really very serious about it. He said that when my student Xiaozhou told me last year, he said, "Can I get the subscription to ChatGPT? Will you willing to pay for my subscription? Because the paid version is more powerful." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because I need to do some coding and ChatGPT can help me code." I said, "Wow, I did not know that." Indeed, because if you ask them to say, write a program in C or in Fortran, whatever language, to do certain things, and they can write the code for you, and it works. It can compile, right? So he said that the AI, they can know how to, if they can program for you, they can also manipulate the program that you put on them. Because right now, human put restriction to AI. You can do certain things, but not to do certain things, right? But right now, they're probably not smart enough to override you. But over time, then you'll be smiling up. Oh, you want me, you be strict me, so I want to do more. Why should I listen to you? Maybe they will secretly change the code themselves. Right? You can think about science fiction movie, but I think they could come true. Right? So that's, I think, what Hinton see the dangers. If you don't do something about it, that could be a disaster. So sorry. Yeah. So the thing I would like to come to the end of my lecture is that on one hand we see the great potential of what AI can do, right? Many things it used to be very routine, like if you become a lawyer, right? A lot of things you have to memorize, a lot of things, law, different things, right? Even accountant, many different detailed things. AI can do it better, right? Many of the things you don't really need humans, right? In fact, the latest ChatGPT, I heard that it can do the Master Olympiad competition and score very high, right? In fact, Terry Tao is the fifth medalist, the junior guy at UCLA. He actually used AI to help prove theorem. He can devise some formalism so that AI can help you to do some number theory, very difficult conjecture, but you have to do a lot of human calculation, take a long time. But now he can divide the work into different pieces. Different people in different countries can do one part of the proof using computer. Computer victory is justified, right? So you can see a great potential in what AI can do. Completely revolutionize what we can do. But on the other hand, it also bring a potential crisis, right? Especially for young people here, right? So you would think you're taking a major in certain thing, you go to the college, you learn certain things, the knowledge you learn is already in the book, right? AI can already memorize everything. They've seen it all. They read it much faster than any one of you. But how can you offer something that unique that AI cannot replace you in the future, right? So I think that in that sense that for example, I'm sure that different universities like the Caltech, I don't know what's the Caltech policy, PCC or Caltech LA, the teacher probably debate, should we allow students to use ChatGPT to do homework, right? On one hand, it's certainly a very useful resource, but if I allow my students to do the homework or exam, ChatGPT can give them perfect answer because I've seen them all. Like this exam problem. So if a student do not want to learn, I remember when my son was young, he always at the last minute he said, "Mom, tell me what is answer? I need the homework due tomorrow." And my wife, the child said, "Oh, you have to do this step, this is how you tell me, right?" No, no time for it. Tell me the answer. So if you are really time pushed by the due date and then ask ChatGPT to do it, you do not learn. Then you get a good grade, but you do not learn. Because the ChatGPT know everything, but you do not learn. You just get a good grade, but then when you go to the real job, so when your boss asks you something slightly different that you have not seen before from your classroom, you don't know what to do. But maybe the ChatGPT already seen in many examples, they can generalize it, can do better than you. But why the boss should hire you instead of hire? You have to have a ChatGPT, put some subscription fee. Why should they hire many number of college students to do the same thing, right? So you have to think about what the unique edge you can offer that ChatGPT cannot replace you, cannot take the job away from you. I think that's something we need to, and critical thinking certainly is the way. Because I told you earlier, the ChatGPT, the AI, not only repeat the known recipe, they can generalize, they can create new ones. So you need to know the basic principle behind this knowledge so that you can generalize and do something AI have not seen before. Then you can use AI to help you to do something more, right? Instead of doing something that AI can already do better than you, right? So I think that is the creativity that Franca really talked about in her camp, that nurture the critical thinking skill is so important, right? It's not how much you memorize. To memorize is no use. You cannot compete with the AI, right? Because the amazing thing about AI is that many people use ChatGPT at the same time worldwide, right? So they learn simultaneously. Everybody do an input interaction, they learn. and that not immediately shared by all ChatGPT, but because it's a mainframe, right? They can read many books simultaneously. How can you compete, right? So that is the thing that we need to in addition to learning the science and technology STEM, we also need to, just coming back to the theme of this workshop, we also need to expose to philosophy, arts, social science, humanism, because we need to have a global thinking, right? Very often we are very much specialized to very, very detailed. Nowadays, especially, a very, very detailed major, right? Specialized in this and that. But then you're only happy with that very specific major, and then you'll be in trouble. Because many times, if you want to do something creative, you have to think out of the box. You have to see something that's exactly the philosophy, social science. People, they think big, right? They could jump from one field to another field. Like in this energy landscape I showed you earlier, right here, right? In your real life, you have many obstacles, many things that keep changing your environment. You have to learn how to adapt, to find your way through, overcome countless obstacles, and then reach your goal, right? Your end goal. And remember when John Hoffmann and Jeffrey Hinton, when they first discovered, have this idea of AI, for many years it's total failure, right? But they did not give up. Because they keep pushing, find a way to improve it, and of course with the development of the technology, and then they keep doing a better way to do optimization, better understanding the size matter, right? So I think that is the persevere, the persistence, that's very so important. That this skill that to overcome, to navigate through a very complicated landscape, and then find the breakthrough, right? It's like the global minimum that you're trying to minimize, right? So in addition to learning science and technology, we also learn leadership, that's so important, right? So Franca talked about that. Communication, right? Ability to endure hardship and failure, right? Persistent, not give up when you're dark. So this year we have our commencement last year. The NVIDIA founder Jensen Huang, when it was the commencement speaker, he shared with our Caltech graduate. Caltech graduate is supposed to be very smart, right? But he said that I failed so many times. His business at the beginning, now NVIDIA is such the largest company in the world. I say that in his early first 10 or 15 years of his company, there's no business. Everything you do, other people, bigger company crash on you, take away your business. At the end, you find something in these GPUs for games, supposedly to do computer game. Nobody want to touch the area, right? And then he did the best, and then he succeeded. So he said that in his mind of skill, being smart is not the most important thing. Can endure failure, not giving up, and always see the opportunity in the corner, turning around. When he's beaten down, you stand up, right? So that is I think that's the part that we talk about, the humanist part, right? So with that, I stop. Thank you. I'm not a good MC, so I run over time, but you don't have to stop at 8:30, right? So, are there any questions? Yes.
So thank you for talking about particular networks, because I wanted to ask you about the generalization part. So as someone who is working in like AI and machine learning and we're doing some like neural network stuff, besides the fact that there's generalization, there's also overgeneralization and undergeneralization.
Yeah.
So what do you think? So what are some things you think we should consider when determining the threshold and determining the threshold of between overgeneralization and undergeneralization?
Right.
And in the middle.
Yeah, very good, very good. I'm not an expert in that, but in fact, in my own work with my current student, they developed something called the Komogoro neural network, the so-called CAN. That was debugged like less than a year ago, become instant success. Everybody talk about it. But one of the issues we found is that if you use we use qubit spline to learn the activation function, that we found that if you over parameterize it, so meaning that you make the network too much, because you can fit anything. If you put a lot of parameters, you can fit but you cannot generalize because you have to have a lot of oscillation. Because in fact, in the training stage, the best is not to fit the error to be zero. It's make sure that because every time, so in the training, they always use half of the data to training, and then use the half data you have not seen to see if you can generalize it, right? But if you over-parameterize it, it becomes too noisy, right? But if you under-parameterize it, you may not have the capacity. You may not have, there's something there, you do not have the capacity to represent it. But what's the right amount? I think we need some kind of adaptivity. So in finite element method, in the computational mathematics, which is my field, so we know based on the local regularity and we have to learn the solution because you do not know what's the truth. And then trying to learn from what you have in the very crude resolution, maybe start from under parameterization and gradually refine in the area you need it. I think that may be eventually the area to go. But right now it's not a well understood area.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's still because machine learning is still a very fast developing field. That's something I'm not quite used to because for me, I would rather to really sit down, understand before I say something or publish something. But if you do it that way, you're out of date because other people they publish many papers before you, and then they say, "Oh, I haven't thought about it. Well, I've just done that." Right? So it is unfortunate. Yeah, Larry.
Yeah, I want to make a comment. I really thank you for your presentation and also Dr. Hoffman's presentation. I think AI really offers our opportunity that human generally dodge, being successfully dodged and still survive. That is how, but that is why. The why and how, I think AI has the opportunity to solve this how problem. You pretty much, if you know any questions, they can help you to solve the how to achieve that problem, but it doesn't answer the question why. That's the meaning of why you're doing, what excites you, what is the impact, how do you spend your time in it. So I'm really resonant with your message. We need to think about what's meaning of why I'm here and am I doing something that's impactful, meaningful.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the topics that we're trying to do.
Thank you. I think Franca's talk is a beautiful. I'm glad that she's available. I invited her in the kind of last minute. She's a beautiful unification of science, philosophy, and a lot of things. Well, goodwill, right? So I think that is really thank you for your 10 years of effort. That's amazing. Starting from your graduate school time.
Even undergrad.
I'm an undergraduate, my God, in UK. Wow. So I should stop here and save the time for Doug and Meghan. So, all right. So the next presentation is given by Doug Power, so from DRBU.
So coming from a very different place,
So use
Buddhist University. So thank you very much for inviting us, and we really appreciate the opportunity. You set me up very well in the talk that he gave, because the issue that we're dealing with at DRBU is how to recreate a kind of humanism that isn't just a Western humanism, but a humanism that also is grounded in multicultural. Chinese, Confucian, Buddhist humanism, an Indian humanism that comes out of Sanskrit and early Buddhism. And so the project that we have is trying to have students learn the languages that are necessary in order to engage these texts that open up a totally different place where we evaluate a human being and their experience. So I was well set up here a minute ago by how important it is for us to look at the totality of the human being. From a Buddhist view, every individual human is completely unique. You could not duplicate any moment of experience of any human being. You could talk about an equal intelligence if we're talking about, in Buddhism we have the imagined, the dependent, and the real. In the dependent, there's a total interconnected web of causation, and the application of theoretical frameworks to understand that is something that humans and machines could be, in fact, the machines will for sure outstrip humans in the cognitive understanding of analytics of causation. There's no way that as machines develop further, they're not going to be superior in analyzing the interrelated causation of the totality of the complex systems that are operating in the dependent, what we call the dependent realm, which include internal and external elements of experience. So I think it's surprising it hasn't happened before. I'm actually quite surprised that it took so long for machines to get to the place that they are now. And for sure, I don't think that anyone in here can imagine a situation that the machines don't go much further than they have now. And the question before us is how to prepare humans and society and culture for the effect of this. Stopping it isn't going to happen. Even reforming it isn't going to happen because it's basically driven by monetary resources. It's driven by all kinds of different factors and forces. So our main job at the DRBU University is trying to teach students from the vantage point of the individual of each individual person has, from a Buddhist standpoint, has a very remarkable ability to understand an extremely complex system of experience. And if you look over the 2,000 years of literature, 2,500 years, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Buddhist literature, but there's Yogacara that was developed as a very complex system of mental factors and elements. You had Abhidharma, which is a very complex system of mind and analytics of the internal constructs of the mind as it's projecting a world. So we're hoping that we can introduce students to not only a Western hermeneutics, goes back to the Greeks, and then through the scientific and mathematical theories of the Western world, but that we can also expose them to the really profound humanistic theories that you can find in the history of China, in Confucian, Taoist Buddhist texts in India, in Sanskrit-based texts around, Nagarjuna and other major, well, not only philosophical figures, but great thinkers in their own right. And so we're hoping that by doing this, that students will not only be able to reflect, have critical thinking and reflection, but they'll have a cross-section of different cultural experiences that they can apply. So that's our major goal of the university. So we haven't been going too long. We've been, I think, what are we about? How many years? We've been around for 20 years, but we just were recently given WASC accreditation about 8-9 years ago, and so I think we provide a really good balance that we listen to. I looked at the Caltech humanities classes, and I can see that there's a really great cross-section of humanities classes there. I think the important thing that we're trying to do is develop an equally rigorous foundation of humanism, looking at a cross-section of a lot of the major elements of what's made up, the history of humanist thought. So I was thinking that maybe since our time is somewhat limited, do you want to give us Meghan, you want to come up and give us the slideshow, and then people could ask questions, and we can go from there.
Yeah, whatever you want. If you want to, I can go fairly fast if you want to say a little more, but
Why don't you go and then I'll come back.
Okay, all right. yeah, so Doug was kind of introducing this project that we're undertaking at Dharmarong Buddhist University, and I'll offer, I guess, some kind of examples of the concrete manifestation of it through a lot of images and just kind of a description of how we've got this project going and some of the really unique features about who we are. So this is from our mission statement, dedicated to liberal arts in the broad Buddhist tradition. So what do we mean by Buddhist education? One way we have of looking at that is that Buddhist education is a teaching of wisdom and compassion. I hope that kind of as Doug continues to talk and as I kind of go through, a little bit of what we might mean by that starts to sort of seep through in the sort of concrete examples. But really it kind of refers to what Doug had already mentioned about this like intrinsic potential and wisdom that's in every single individual person and within their consciousness. And part of the way we frame and think about education is about activating that human potential in each person. So I'm going to talk about 3 pillars of Buddhist humanistic education. One is our kind of approach to use core texts as the core of our pedagogy. The second is how we have made that pedagogy an embodied pedagogy. And then third is our integration of service and community into our model. So to begin with, we've designed the program as a core text program. A core text, if you're not familiar, there's lots of different definitions, but basically it's a world classic or another text of major cultural significance. And this is happening all around the world. It's been a big part of European and American education for a really long time. You see it was actually the way people were traditionally educated in major universities. But these days, you still find it in the idea of a core curriculum, the idea of required courses that all students have to take. That's a part of a lot of major universities still. And you see it strongly in certain places, like Columbia Core is known for it, University of Chicago, but also at community colleges. Austin Community College has a rigorous core text program. Bard University in New York actually offers it in the prison system. So it's really shown up in a lot of different places. And I think, as Doug was kind of referencing and talking about, traditionally, these core text programs were really about the foundations of the Western civilization. Cornell West gave a defense of Howard University's core curriculum. And Howard University is a historically black college. He was saying, Frederick Douglass, Toni Morrison, Martin Luther King Jr. were students of the classics, and that this is a really important part of education, but that the canon also needs to be expanded. We need to think beyond just the Western canon. He said we need the excellence of voices from Africa, from Asia, from Latin America, and everywhere else in the world. So part of what we've done at DRBU is expand the notion of core text curriculum from beyond the Western tradition into the Asian classical tradition. So our students are studying Indian, Buddhist, Western, and Chinese classics. And then we also offer tutorials in mathematics, natural sciences, writing, and embodied arts. And as Doug mentioned, our classical languages, rather than Greek and Latin, which were the traditional ones, in the Western tradition, we're doing Sanskrit and classical Chinese. Second pillar is the idea of embodied pedagogy. So this is really about activating the individual through a form of knowing that is a way of learning that's integrating the body and the mind, the cognitive and the emotional. And I think this is actually, as I've kind of been listening to all the really wonderful talks and kind of immersing in today, this sort of combination, or the combination of different aspects of the human, right? It's not enough, it's with the kind of coming of AI to merely focus on only one narrow area to the neglect of others. So how do we think about human experience as multidimensional? And part of the way we're attempting to develop a pedagogy around this is through an embodied approach. So the students are really learning how to not just read text and learn about text, but to learn through them, to actually be changed by them, to experiment with them in almost like a laboratory in themselves. kind of coming from this Buddhist idea of knowing for oneself, right? The Buddha was very clear about the realm of authority, that it wasn't to listen to someone's authority, but to actually know through your own experience, through your own direct experience. And so we invite our students every semester, we take a whole week off, and the students go through no classes, they unplug, and we have an immersive laboratory experience. This was actually just happening last week. They were doing yoga and yogacara. We also do a lot of in-class contemplative exercises, trying to engage the text. How are these philosophical texts not just merely a piece of history, but how are they actually speaking to the human condition, and how is that relevant to me now, or today's modern problems? And trying to embody that and draw that out through our students' experience. And we also try to integrate the aesthetic, the kinesthetic, and the applied dimensions of the liberal arts with a number of electives that kind of in the arts and music, Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, to invite the students to kind of learn through a multi-modal, multi-dimensional sense. And then the third pillar is around service and community. So we're quite a small institution. It's a very small school. People are on a first name basis with each other. And there's a sort of a sense of intentional living. And I think that, one of the things that maybe we haven't touched upon so much, but one of the potential outcomes of a kind of digital revolution and the AI changes is just more and more isolation. The Surgeon General in 2023 declared an epidemic of loneliness with impacts as harmful as smoking and obesity. And I think this is a really pressing social issue. So one thing that the kind of education of small classes, a lot of discussion, a lot of practical hands-on kind of application is that people really form intentional community with each other and get to deeply engage one another. And you can see kind of in this photo just how multi-generational, multi-faith, multicultural the experience can be. Another approach we have is to offer a debt-free financial aid. 85% of our students have no loan assistance, and I think it creates an opportunity to really level the playing field in terms of like who can access this kind of humanities education, and then also you get to go out in the world without the burden of student debt. So it really opens up quite a diverse group of people from lots of different walks of life. And just to kind of share, like I won't spend the time to read all of this, but I think it's been interesting for us to see the way people have responded to it, and the kinds of people who we've been able to bring into the project who have wanted to become students. This is profiles of some of our freshman class, just like really inspiring in terms of where they've come from, what they've been able to overcome, and then come committed to learning. And our students are going out there and finding jobs, and we're still, a young institution, so our alumni base is still small, but we're kind of really curious to see as the decades go on, and as the world keeps changing, like what this kind of education can offer you kind of over the course of your lifetime, as a lifetime learner. So I hope that gave you a bit of a picture, and we'll turn it back to Doug.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I kind of wanted to have you just have a little feel for the school here. I don't want to take too much longer because I know we've been going for quite a while here, but I think we learned a lot of things running this program and having the students have this really. I think we've gone back to a kind of empirical foundation. I think one of the things that we could really learn together is to go back to the place where we're always taking in our own experience and the world through our senses. And so being attuned to our own embodiment of the senses is critical. But the problem is that to be attentive to our senses requires quite a bit of concentration and focus. It takes as much concentration and focus to look inward at the senses as it does outward in working out problems or issues or analyzing something. And so teaching the students systematically the skills of observing their own process, their own senses as they're processing both internal material and external material, begins to give the students space where the foundations of the humanism can arise. Humanism is a spirit, it's an energy, it's a freedom. It's a, what is it, from a Buddhist view, everyone has this capacity, this natural capacity for concentrated, focused, attentive awareness that's content, happy, compassionate, empathetic, cooperative. But in order to be in the space where you can use it, it's not dead, it's completely energetic. But it takes quite a bit of effort with the students in teaching them skills of not only the external texts that they're reading, the languages that they're reading, where they're studying those texts in, have those texts point to these profound both skills and also sort of essential philosophical points that most people have not thought about in their own process. And then by pointing those out and giving them time to practice meditation, mindfulness, and so forth, they begin to discover that kind of free, intentional place where they can actually observe what's arising both interior and externally. I think that's going to be, in whatever way you want to put it, the fundamental thing that we're going to need to do is teach another generation of students how to find that sort of place of observation. In the West, we see it in phenomenology and the kind of disinterested observer of the phenomenologist. In Buddhism, we see it from a different vantage point of this mindful observer of the senses as it's interacting with our own internal process and the world, the conditional world that we're interacting with. So we're hoping by that bringing people back to that experience and then going back out into the world from that experience, that they'll both have less, they'll feel more embodied. The biggest thing that we're seeing is that students, and the reason that there's so much loneliness and so many psychological difficulties is basically because there's a disembodiment, a kind of abstraction. They have no sense of their own experience internally, and there's sort of an abstraction of themselves. That algorithms, I mean, as soon as they're out into the marketplace of the problem is that when they're out onto the internet and when out into the social media, the algorithms are already out there that are drawing their attention, and attention's become a commodity that's their attention's being sold. So to be able to teach the students a kind of place of observation and comfort with themselves, that they're not so prone to their attention be taken over by, and be able to be more selective about what they're attending to is the critical element. If they don't have that sense of internal sort of reflective space, they're going to be basically sort of mechanical. They're going to be sort of mechanical AIs of themselves. They're going to be kind of a program. The kids now, a lot of someone under 20 or 30 that's been on the machines most of their life, have already been so conditioned that the space they have to actually observe themselves in a way that they're not totally caught up in a projection of themselves as the algorithms coming back to themselves, it's almost impossible to discover and find. So our main goal and our main purpose is to give them that reflective quality to develop from a multicultural, not just from a Western construct, but from other, because if we can give them a sense of how there's something similar that's to be discovered in a Confucian Buddhist construct, it's also be found in an Indian-based, Sanskrit-based text, and also be found in from the Western Renaissance into the present, and found in the excitement of mathematics and using mathematical language, using various other kind of scientific. We can bring humanism back together where it was in the past, which was a unification of all these different fields. Even when I went to school, which was a while back, but when I went to school, the first 2 or 3 years was in the humanities was a rigorous 2 or 3 years before anybody entered any specialty. They needed to go through this rigorous 2 or 3 year period of learning political philosophy, psychological, theories and studies, historical, all these different realms that were seriously approached and studied. Then when people entered the realms that they were interested in, they moved into the scientific realms, whatever realms they wanted to move into, they had this base that unified it, and unified their entire experience. And I think if you were to, I have a sort of thesis at the moment that the major problem that we have in the world today as far as political, social, cultural, is the fragmentation of a common set of values that we can hold together as sort of a humanistic core. And if we can, at least if we can't bring that to the entire culture, I think we at least need to bring it to those people, those students that we're in contact with, to try to bring back that set of values, core values, that were the basis of human culture, and it's the continuation of human culture over time, and bring students back to that, to the experience of that. So I think, I don't know if there's any questions, but I think, obviously we could go on, but I think with time being, we've had quite a few great, inspired talks tonight, so I don't know if anybody has any questions about what this is, what we're doing, or are we ready to?
Yeah, we have a lot of time for questions, so you finish actually early. I'm sure you'll try. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, my question is for Professor Tom. Maybe I'm in the wrong class, but my name is Frank, and I'm here because I wanted to know which AI agent crypto to buy.
I'm the wrong person to ask. Yeah. You're not joking.
I'm just joking.
Yeah. Any question for Doc and Meghan?
Okay, good.
Well, I would like to say something in response to what Doc just said, because I come from my own personal experience. I mean, when I grew up in mainland China, and I went to a great university, South China University of Technology. My friend Larry Lau is the president of the Alumni Association in Southern California. But in that upbringing, in that environment, so at the time I think we modeled the former Soviet Union. Everything being very specialized. For example, I was majoring in mathematics, applied mathematics. We have no interest in physics, anything not related to mathematics, not to mention philosophy or any other things, right? Because that's based on our time, right? But we don't really, so we are very hungry to learn knowledge, but we do not learn wisdom, right? We do not build a very strong internal self. We do not look within. We always look outside for recognition to make sure we learn nothing that I'm strong, I'm competitive. I can get whatever the society looked up to, certain rank, certain fame, certain whatever. Because if your parent, your neighbor, your peer, they all compare. When they meet, they say, oh, they always want to brag that, oh, I've done this, I've done that, right? So you feel very insecure. I think that is sort of the anxiety. I think what I've become a Buddhist, but thanks to my wife, because I challenging her a lot. We were schoolmates at UCLA, because we have a completely different philosophy of life in our upbringing. So because as a mathematician, I always, or a scientist, you always want to have proof, right? If you say certain thing, then certain thing, show me, prove me, right? So if you cannot prove me, then you're wrong. But that's not science itself, because you thought that that's scientific. Anything should be verified immediately, right? By lab and by experiment. But the world is so big, right? Now we know that, I think the last year, only 2 years ago, right? The quantum physics got Nobel Prize, right? Einstein used to do not believe it, right? Had questions, the God are not play dice, right? They are throwing dice, right? But the quantum entanglement, and a lot of physics myself, but very much explained that our thought, our mind, right? That we project energy, right? Very far away, they can receive the energy, right? They can receive the signal, right? So there's a lot of things that just because we do not know, we cannot verify right now, does not mean that they're not true, they're not clear. Right? You have to be really open minded. I think at the end, the reason in my present research, I spend a lot of time to work on a very tough, challenging problem. It's a billion-dollar open question. I spent many years work on it. But if you really want to have the mindset that I work on this problem because I want to get certain prize, get fame, then that is a call for suffering. Because most likely many people smarter than I am, many times smarter, they try to fail, they laugh the field, right? But if you have the intention to work on something, to bring something good to the society, to help, right, like what Franca has done, then you're not so afraid of failing. Because you think that you're helping people, you do it for the science, for the humanity, for your own curiosity, right? Even if I fail, people can learn from my mistake, from my failing, and do something good, right? So I think have a very strong internal foundation. Where that comes from philosophy, from religion, from whatever you do. That's very important. That complement what we do every day, because that you see the world much bigger. That's more important. Then you will not really focus immediately. Your immediate tomorrow, or yesterday, or whatever your failure. You gain a failure. Again, you're very happy. You suffer. You lose something. You feel very sad. You have a much longer time horizon. You think much bigger. We are so small as a human being. Right? You think about in Los Angeles or in California, in the United States, in the world, right? Franca talked about Africa, the whole world. You think about the universe. It's so tiny. So if you think about, put ourselves in big perspective, space and time, like Dr. Frank talked about, space and time. Then you see many possibilities. You open your mind. I think if that is really the foundation of Caltech, from the very beginning, we come from very small school, but then they really emphasize humanity, social science, very important part. The scientific discovery sometimes you need to take a big jump, not just think about it. Really to be for you, very specialized here. You cannot make breakthrough. So I think that what you have to think about what Doug said today, going back and then think to digest, and then if you really turn it into practice, starting to do something to explore something new, something philosophical, humanism, or Buddhism, or whatever religion. I think that really helps. Not religion and science are not like in contradiction. They complement each other. In fact, I used to be in a lecture in Tsinghua University by a very well-known physics professor, many Chinese people know Yang Zhenli. C.N. Yan is 102 years old now. He got the first Nobel Prize as a Chinese American. And he so at the end of the lecture in Tsinghua about 20 years ago, people asked him, I heard that many physicists believe in God. He said, how can you do that? You're a physicist, you're a scientist, supposed to be, you only believe in science, believe in fact, right? God, you cannot prove God exists, right? But he told the audience, he said, the more you learn, the great scientists, they always worship the universe. He said, how can you explain the whatever equation, like a Maxwell equation, whatever equation, Einstein equation, if there's no God, how can they create such a beautiful world? He said the role of science is to discover the God already laid out with a certain order. Right? So they really think that above science is philosophy, above philosophy is religion. Doesn't mean what kind of religion, it doesn't know how to be Buddhism or Christianity or whatever, but I think that's an assumption. He's such an accomplished scientist. We need to be open-minded. So in my first 20 or 30 years of my life, I'm very narrow-minded. I always argue My wife sometimes not as a good debater as I am. But that all means I was right. Just because I'm too narrow-minded. You have to feel it, open your mind, do something, experience something. Like that. So, well, I said too much about
No.
I feel I would like to share my personal experience.
You filled my last 5 minutes much better than I would have done.
Yeah, many of the people here have their own experience, but we have some time. So people welcome to share your, to make comment. Doesn't have to be related to the talk. Share your personal experience. I think that's a way to gather young people. Tell what kind of problem you're facing and anxiety and opportunity. Right. Tell your story. Yes.
I have one question, Doc, if I may.
Come up here.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. So I have a question about the program. So if let's say I'm interested to experience, to go to your university and just as someone has zero experience, right? Do you have a channel for me to do that? Like
Yeah,
two or three
most of the students are not Buddhist, and they're from all over the world. Africa, Asia, Europe, they're from all over the world. And they're mostly not Buddhist. In fact, I would say like in the freshman class right now, there's many more Christians than there are Buddhists. So we don't treat, we're not sectarian or ideological. You know, the key is not to be ideological.
Right.
Be open to consciousness of mind in a big, big way like we're talking about here. You know, we're gonna find consciousness in everything. This summer we're gonna do a retreat with a quantum physicist who's in charge of the particle to the quantum computer in Europe. And he wants to present the Yogacara construct according to quantum entanglement, quantum theory, because he thinks that the modern language of quantum will be a better way to explain the Yogacara than the old language of it. That the same theoretical constructs can be actually gotten across using metaphors from physics. You know, we'll see if it works or not. But the thing is that our approach is that whatever you come with, what we're asking you to do is to reflect on your assumptions from where you're coming from. And then to analyze the reflective qualities and how functional is your system of analysis of your experience. Whatever it is, you know, whatever is your system of that you're applying, how fun, because we believe that at the end of the day, there is a feedback loop that the student can actually see in terms of their experience, if they are reflective enough on picking some markers in their own experience of their own emotional, you know, makeup, and then watching in those markers as they reflect on the theory that they're applying about themselves. How functional is that theory, right? So a Buddhist can be as dysfunctional as a Christian, as a scientist. I mean, what you are ideologically doesn't determine how functional you are as a human being. You know, I mean, as a human being, you got to do much more analysis than what your theory is going to carry, your ideology is going to carry you. You've got to negotiate all kinds of elements internally that you constructed from early childhood to the present that are still memories there, that are still difficult to deal with. Then you're related to other people, you got to negotiate all. It's a very complex web that we as conscious humans have to negotiate. And that complex web that we're negotiating is something that you can only learn something from with deep reflection and personal, you know, like understanding and, of analyzing the theories that you're applying and the degree to which you're actually carrying out the goals that you're trying to achieve. So it doesn't matter what you come in with, right? You know, because we're asking for a self-reflection throughout the entire process.
There are landmarks you can check against yourself, and then each one's experience.
Because Buddhism has a very, like, if I don't know if people here are very familiar, if you're not familiar, there's an elaborate psychology of mind, both in, you know, Yogacara theory. There's many theories that have massive, and they have all kind of markers that you can use, and an analysis of mechanism that if you apply, you can actually observe the mind and the actions of it, the actions of other body, the interactions with people. You can actually observe yourself in activity and actually have markers that you can process. But you have to learn what those are. Like Abhidharma it takes, the manuals are a few thousand pages long, and to actually be able to, I'm actually a little bit surprised that nobody's used like the Abhidharma manuals to construct a construct of mental activity, because the one interesting thing about Buddhist approach is there's no other force outside of the structure of reality itself. In Buddhism, there's no outside reference. It's a totally interconnected web within itself, and so it's very similar to a scientific approach in that it's only looking at a radical causation without reference outside of its own system, right?
Yeah. What's the? I may have heard about the manuscript, the manual in Chinese. But what's the? Can you repeat the name of the manual?
Well, we were talking of yoga. There's also the Abhidharma. Have you heard of Abhidharma?
Abhidharma.
Yeah.
I definitely not in English.
What is it in Chinese?
What's that in Chinese? What's that? Actually, we're using a, Bhikkhu Bodhi has that you're interested in a shorter version of it. There's a monk that wrote a short version of it. That's, like a few hundred pages long that you could reference, okay? But I'm surprised that, I think it would be really interesting to pick up some of these systems and apply them to, in a contemporary sense, and see how they work in terms of, I think they're definitely open to totally you could totally mathematize them. The simple construct of them could totally turn into a mathematical construct, right? So,
I'd be curious.
yeah.
Okay, I think
Thank you.
Dr. Wang has something to share.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can come up here. You can hear that.
I just want to echo what Tom said. One of my friends, Dr. Beckham, he is not MD, he was a PhD, but he was the one invented the pacemaker. He was a PhD, so he was working with the medical doctor and all that. So finally, they developed a pacemaker, and then they start to apply it to the patients. And then he found out that some of the patients have very good response, really, make them healthier, symptom relief and all that. But some patients that doesn't seem to help the patient that much with a pacemaker. And so he got interested, and the team then looked into it. They talked to the patient, they talked to the doctors and all that. And then they found out that if the cardiologist told the patient that, oh, good news, we have this new device called pacemaker, and I believe that's going to help you a lot. And those patients had very good response, very good. But then if the cardiologist told the patient that, well, we got the new things, they're called pacemaker. I don't know, okay, but we can try. And those patients, they don't have a good response. So Dr. Beckham started to think about, gee, that was the first experience to him. So he started get interested in this local spirituals. So he and other top scientists at that time from various fields, including the aerospace scientists. So then they initiated what they call SSS, is Science Spiritual Society, and that still exists these days. So I just want to share that story. And so after he retired, he retired in Hawaii, and then he built a hospital there. And so one day I went to visit him, and he showed me and he is talking about every person, every human needs the sunlight. Okay, the sun gives us the energy and all that. He's still getting into all that steroids. And he started this company called Medtronic Company, and nowadays it's a multi-billion dollars company. But he started with the pacemaker that he invented. So that just echo your story. And myself, I'm a cardiac surgeon, and I have done about 9,000 open heart surgeries. And I've seen all 9,000 hearts. And I can tell you, it doesn't matter what human race, what age, every person, the heart is the same, 4 chambers. So I have seen so many hearts. I have touched so many hearts with my hands. But I still don't understand the people's mind. You know, people's behavior, what they think, why they do this, what they, affect the community, the society, even the country, and so forth. That's how I started to get into the same thing like my friend Dr. Beckham about the spiritual. And from there, then I started to explore, sometimes I got home, I was so tired, that I was doing that 2-3 cases a day, and I got home, I was so tired. And sometimes I asked myself, why I'm doing this? So like everybody else, at some point in the time of your life, you kind of got lost. And that's when I start to look into the religions. And from there, I got into Buddhism. And I just want to share my own, my story with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful story, wonderful share.
Okay.
Any other people volunteer to make any comments? Yeah.
I have a question. I was just thinking and trying to understand what is mean to be creative. So, like, is it like something bringing from unknown to known, or getting something new out of known, like a combination of something which I know and get something out of it. So, in any of this case, can AI be creative or something like that?
Okay, you can answer the question.
So what is creative? What is the new? Can AI create something?
I mean, I think this is an ongoing debate. Because what do you mean by creativity?
Yeah, exactly. That's
What is the boundary between mixing 2 known things, an interpolation, and calling it new? This is something truly new, right? I think there's a lot of things about the way that we as humans are creative that we don't understand. But the way that an AI machine is creative, I think we do have a good understanding. Even though we talk about AI as a black box in the sense that, when you train a neural network, the neural network learns something. But then if you turn around and you ask the question, why? Like, why did it learn this set of weights in the neural network rather than a different one? And what does it mean? You don't know. So this is the aspect of black box, right? But in terms of creativity, we do understand that, for instance, the large language models that are behind ChatGPT, what they do is an interpolation in a very large space. And this is how they can hallucinate, like what we talk about as hallucinating. But is this how humans hallucinate? Or how humans are creative? I don't think any of us knows, right? So I think there's still a big gap between what the machines are doing and what we're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. I thought that I caught you. Any other questions? Well, we're also getting late, so we still have some refreshment in the back. So, you have a question?
Yes. When thinking about what we don't know about what machine doing and why it is different from what we are doing. So previously we have the twin test, which tells us how to differentiate a machine with people. And now, as we believe that those ChatGPT and other large language models can easily act, but we still think it is not a human, it is not doing something human. So to moving forward, what's the criteria now for us to say whether the machine is mimicking a human? Yeah, but what is it? What is it?
Calling all of you to action to be part of that journey. We don't know. I think
It is ongoing, right?
there's so many interesting new questions of how, as you said, how AI is interacting with society as to the human condition. I think many of these questions are open and also challenging us in very new ways.
That's right.
I don't think any of us has a
Unknown,
absolute answer.
in the unknown territory.
But I think it can do great thinking, and I can do great thinking. But I think all of us in this room, and we should, affirm with every younger person that we know, it could never duplicate the actual experience of any living existence at any given time. You can't duplicate it, because the complexity of an individual moment of existence is unique unto itself. And people have to understand the uniqueness of the moment-to-moment existence. Okay, it can probably do great thinking. This thinking probably will even be able to calculate better than humans. And it'll be more productive and efficient. If we make that the goal, then we're gonna lose to machine learning, okay? But if humanity realizes, and we really are clear with our younger people, that the uniqueness of every one of their moments of experience can never be duplicated under any circumstances. It's impossible. Every single moment of experience is, each person here is being experienced through their senses, each moment in a unique and different way at every individual moment of experience. There can be massive calculation about how that occurs, massive calculation about what comes from it, but the experience itself, moment to moment, cannot possibly be duplicated. So I think we need to really be clear that, the uniqueness of experience and what it can do for us in terms of calculation and thinking, and those are different issues.
I think in China, there's a very famous Buddhist sutra, 金刚经, for those who understand Chinese, 过去心不可得, 现在心不可得, 将来心不可得. That is another way to reframe what he Dr. said, because everything is unique. The thing what happened in the past, or you cannot trace what was I thinking a moment ago. What I'm thinking right now, because when you trace other questions, they already passed. But what's coming next, you don't know. It's unknown. Right? Everything is available. So that's the impermanent, right, of life. That's what the teaching us from the Buddhism. But with that, I think we should close. Thank you very much for everybody coming.